What's going on, everybody? Welcome to After Prison Show, and in this video we're going to talk about the most scary and haunted prisons there ever have been. You know, I've been to a few prisons myself that have been pretty damn scary. One prison that used to house death row inmates, and a bunch of other facilities where prisoners have either been killed at or have taken their own lives. And to be at a place where you know that guys have lost their lives, or very well you could lose your life there, that's some pretty scary stuff to think about. And with all of the prisons that I have been to personally, none of those could begin to compare to the prisons I'm going to be telling you about in this video. The first prison to make this list is Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Considered to be one of the most haunted locations in the world. Eastern State Penitentiary first opened its doors in 1829. The prison was designed to hold 253 prisoners, each occupying a solitary confinement cell for the entirety of their stay. This prison already sounds like hell on earth just thinking that they don't even have any sort of general population here. The harsh punishment, solitary confinement, was meant to help criminals find penance and remorse and salvation. But in reality, it drove many prisoners insane. Even when prisoners would leave their cells for whatever reason, whether going to a work detail, maybe to the chow hall, whatever, even during the time that they were out of their cells, this prison was still ran like an isolation unit. Being that when prisoners were released from their cells, they had to wear masks that prohibited them from being able to communicate with any other prisoners. To think that being locked up at this facility, you can't even talk to anybody, that there is enough to drive anybody insane. Think about being at a place like this for years, 5, 10, even more years, not being able to communicate with anybody, potentially the only person you having to talk to is yourself. I could not even imagine doing time like this. You know, while locked up, there are few things that can help to keep a prisoner sane and from losing his mind. And one of the most important things that there is the ability to be able to communicate and talk to other people who are locked up with you. Eastern State's most famous inmate was undoubtedly Chicago gangster Al Capone. And he was at this prison from 1929 to 1930. He was only there for 1 year. And though it says that Al Capone's cell was the nicest at Eastern State and he was only there for a year, he complained that he was being haunted by the ghost of one of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre victims, James Clark. Harsh punishments at this prison only further how scary and haunted this prison probably really was. And those harsh punishments include the bath water. Inmates who broke the rules risked being dunked in a bath of ice cold water and then hung from a wall at night. I mean, they're hanging prisoners up in this prison like there's some clothes on a clothesline. Can you imagine being dunked in some ice cold water, probably butt ball naked, and then being hung up to dry overnight by some chains? I can imagine that just with the thought of that alone would be enough for any prisoners to really try to not break the rules. However, I'm pretty sure that back during the time that this prison operated, you had guards here who would put prisoners in the bath water for probably no damn reason at all. Could have been because a guard didn't like a certain prisoner. Or maybe there were certain guards there who were on power trips and would just do this for the sheer thrill of it. During the winter months when this punishment was most popular, the water on an inmate's skin would form into a layer of ice before the morning. Another harsh punishment at this Eastern State Penitentiary was what was referred to as the mad chair. And I'm quite sure that this is a punishment method still used to this day because nowadays it's referred to as the buck chair or the restraint chair. The mad chair was named such because it was not uncommon for an inmate to go mad before his punishment ended. Inmates would be strapped into this chair with leather strips so tightly that it was impossible for them to make the smallest movements. Yeah. That definitely sounds like that old buck chair or restraint chair that's still being used to this very day in pretty much every facility everywhere. They would sit for days without food until the circulation in their body almost stopped from the tightness of the straps and the lack of movement. I can tell you one thing, nowadays I'm quite sure they're not allowed to leave prisoners in a chair like this for days. But to just think back in the day when this prison was open, that they would leave these guys strapped to this mad chair for days at a time without food. The iron gag. The most deadly punishment was known as the iron gag and specifically designed for those inmates who refused to obey the no communications policy. My God, you mean to tell me that if you were at this prison and you got caught talking, that you faced what was referred to as the iron gag? What in the hell is the iron gag? Well, an iron collar was clamped onto the tongue of an inmate and then chained to his wrist, which were strapped high behind their back. I can't even demonstrate what this would be like because I'm kind of confused as to what they're trying to tell me they did with this iron gag. An iron clamp on their tongue that was chained to their wrist, which were strapped high behind their back. Oh my God. Could you imagine being strapped up like this with an iron clamp on your tongue and then chained to your wrist that are chained up high behind your back? That gives me so much anxiety. I mean, I'm almost in a cold sweat just thinking about that. Any movement resulted in a tearing of the tongue and severe bleeding. Many inmates who suffered this torture died from a loss of blood before their torment ended. That sounds like a very painful way to go. One of the most haunting things to take place at this Eastern State Penitentiary was what was referred to as the locksmith haunting. And what this was a major paranormal episode that occurred to a locksmith doing restoration work in cell block number 4. According to the tale, he was working to remove a 140-year-old lock from the cell door when a massive force overcame him so powerful that he was unable to move. Some believe when he removed the key, it opened a gateway to a horrific past and offered the spirits caught behind its bars a pathway out. The man spoke of experiencing an out-of-body state as he was drawn toward the negative energy which burst through the cell. Cody, do you got a nightlight? Because I ain't gonna be able to sleep after this. I mean, there's some scary stuff to think about. To think that this guy was taking off a lock off of a cell door that was 140 years old, and when he did, some paranormal extreme force overtook his body so strong that he couldn't even move, and he felt like he was having an out-of-body experience as he was being pulled toward this door. I mean, it legitimately sounds like this guy was opening up the gateway to hell. The second prison to make this list on this most scary and haunted prisons is, of course, Alcatraz. Alcatraz was designed to break the spirit of the most rebellious prisoners by putting them in a structured and monotonous routine until their release. You know, to be honest with you, I mean, Alcatraz sounds like any other prison, just mentioning that small bit about this place. Prisoners were given only 4 basic things: food, clothing, shelter, and medical care. Anything beyond these basics had to be earned. Famous criminals such as Al Capone, George Machine Gun Kelly, Alvin Karpis, and Arthur Doc Barker spent time at Alcatraz. Now, these are famous prisoners who you would imagine with them getting to this prison, they would have the power to be able to have any kind of luxuries at their disposal that they probably wanted. And it says that mobsters in other prisons often manage to manipulate special privileges from the guards, but not at Alcatraz. Brutal punishments at this prison included a strip-down cell. Prisoners refusing to follow the rules risked being confined to a strip cell located on the lower tier of D block. It was a dark steel cell where inmates would be stripped naked and given water and bread once daily. Let me tell you something. Steel, it gets pretty damn cold. And to imagine being locked up in this stripped down cell, butt ball naked, no blanket, no mat, no pillow, no nothing to try to keep your body warm. And then also suffering from such low energy from only being given water and bread once daily, I can imagine this was not a pleasant place to be at all. And I'm quite sure that everybody who went into this cell probably froze damn near close to the brink of death. The only toilet was a hole in the cell floor, and there was no sink. Matter of fact, just reading about this makes me think about the jail that we just went and visited and the padded room that we saw there, where the toilet actually was a hole in the floor. And while in this stripped down cell, convicts had no contact with others and spent their time in pitch dark solitude. So not only are you freezing and starving and butt ball naked, but you're also alone in absolute blackness. There were also some haunting stories that took place at Alcatraz as well. Cell 14D one of the whole cells, is believed by some to be very active with spirits. Visitors and employees have reported feeling a raw coldness and have claimed that at times a sudden intensity encompasses the cell. Tales have been told of an event in the 1940s where a prisoner locked in 14D screamed throughout the night that a creature with glowing eyes was killing him. The next day, guards found the man strangled to death in the cell. No one ever claimed responsibility for the convict's death. However, the next day, while doing a head count, while these guards were actually doing their count, they counted one too many prisoners. And maybe that one extra prisoner that they counted was whatever this was that actually killed this guy. Some of the guards claimed to see the dead convict in the line with other inmates, but only for a second before he vanished. There's also a chilling story of the ghost of Al Capone. Al Capone, who spent his last years at Alcatraz with his health in decline from untreated syphilis, took time playing the banjo with his prison band. Fearing that he would be killed if he spent his recreation time in the prison yard, Capone received permission to spend recreation time practicing his banjo in the shower room. In recent years, a park ranger claimed that he heard banjo music coming from that same exact shower room. Not familiar with the history of Alcatraz, the ranger could not find a reason for the sound and documented the strange event. Other visitors and employees have also reported hearing this banjo music being played from this shower area. Cody, again, that nightlight, man. I ain't gonna be getting no sleep after this. I'm barely getting any sleep at all, but after reading these crazy stories, I'm gonna need to sleep with the blanket tucked just a little higher tonight. These are some scary damn stories. Number 3 on this list is West Virginia State Penitentiary. During its more than 100 years in operation, the Moundsville Penitentiary in West Virginia was one of the most violent correctional facilities and also the last stop for nearly 1,000 prisoners. The prisoners lived in cramped quarters, which led to riots. Many men were hanged or killed in the electric chair, while others were murdered by other prisoners. Yeah. Certainly sounds like a pretty damn violent place if you ask me. The prison closed in 1995, but according to some, the tortured spirits are still behind bars and in the bowels of the prison and have been seen or heard while on a tour. You know, they do tours of this prison, and me and Cody, we're taking AfterPrisonShow to this facility very soon. We wanted to be able to do this for Halloween this year. We weren't able to do that, but I can promise you, we're going to this facility. For almost 1,000 men, Moundsville Prison was the last stop. Dozens were hung, several executed, many more were murdered by their own kind. My God, that sounds a little racist. You can't say that type of stuff in 2017. You can't say your own kind. Hey, yo, you got murdered by your own kind. We ain't going for that today. I mean, you just had the owner of the Houston Texans talking about the whole kneeling during the national anthem in the NFL. This guy said, we can't let the prisoners run the prison. Are you racist? Are you racist for real? Other prisoners at this facility who couldn't take the sentence that they had to serve committed to escape. And you know, that's something that I've seen personally throughout the time that I've served. I've seen guys who can't take it and have taken their own lives as feeling like that is the only way for them to get out of there. The stone walls of the West Virginia Penitentiary have seen hard men broken, dreams shattered, and evil punished. The death and carnage have left a mark that will never be washed away. Cody, get on Expedia. We got to get to this prison, man. We got to get us one of them paranormal meter things, like a radiation thing, whatever you call it. By many accounts, some of the tortured souls who served time under this roof are still lurking in the shadows of the prison walls. Cody, I'm ready to go fight me a demon entity. We're going to West Virginia. I think we should just stop filming right now and just go. Let's just pack it up, go to Dick's Sporting Goods, get us some boxing gloves, and let's go fight us some paranormal entities. Wouldn't that be a prison story to tell? The fight I lost in prison to a demon, not clickbait. Prisoners were rarely safe inside these stone walls, and downstairs was one of the most infamous rooms in this facility. The prisoner recreation room was better known as the Sugar Shack. I'm really curious to know why they called this room the Sugar Shack. This doesn't sound scary to me. I mean, it sounds scary for a completely different reason. But why are they calling this room the Sugar Shack? It was here that illegal activities took place, like gambling, fighting, taking the Junies, and murder. Quite sure it has everything to do with taking the Junies, why that room was nicknamed the Sugar Shack. Between 1899 and 1949, 85 men were hung from the gallows at the penitentiary. The practice often drew crowds of locals who would come to watch the condemned meet their end. My God. See, this is why they invented TV, because people back then, they didn't have nothing better to do than to go watch some people get their lives taken away from them. Ain't that what they used to do to witches? back in the Salem days? Hang and burn them? However, the practice of hanging was ruled cruel and unusual punishment in 1951 after the state reviewed some of the botched hangings. Can you imagine? I mean, just imagine what it would be like. I don't want you to put yourself in this position, but just imagine seeing somebody being hung to death because you're living back in 1899 and you ain't got no TV or Netflix, and there ain't nothing better to do but to go down to West Virginia State Penitentiary and watch them take the life of a man. But while doing so, they somehow botched this. And when they let him down, he's like, "You ain't kill me though. I'm good. Can I leave? I'm good, right? I mean, we ain't gotta do this again. You messed this up. This ain't my fault." Oh, wow. Wow. Not only were there botched hangings at this facility, but there was also a prisoner who was inadvertently decapitated. In 1951, an inmate named Paul Glenn was asked to build an electric chair to carry out future executions. They asked a prisoner to build the electric chair. Can you imagine what it would be like for this guy? Hey, yo, ain't you that dude that built the electric chair? Man, you worse than telling in prison. You gots to go. And I don't mean leaving out this room neither. We're gonna have to take the soul up out your body. Got prisoners building electric chairs. You know, when I read this reminded me of something that I'm gonna be telling a story about very soon here on After Prison Show, about a prisoner who made a contraption that helped prison staff and officials. And this actually got him killed as well. The electric chair that this prisoner built was nicknamed Old Sparky and is still on display there. Cody, we're going to West Virginia State Penitentiary. We're gonna take us some baseball bats and we're gonna treat Old Sparky like it's a pinata. That thing going down. F you, Paul Glenn. F you. During the 1950s, there was a period where overcrowding was so significant at this West Virginia State Penitentiary that they had 3 prisoners in 2-man cells, in small 5x7 cells. And in these cells, there would be 2 bunks for 2 prisoners, and that 3rd prisoner would have to sleep there on the floor. Now, I've seen this personally where there's overcrowding. I've been the prisoner who's had to sleep on the floor in a 2-man cell, and I can attest to the fact that it's overcrowding that makes tension inside of a cell block at an all-time high. Bumping shoulders with a guy not being able to have a single inch of personal space. There's gonna be a lot of fighting that takes place when you're in a situation like that. And at this West Virginia penitentiary, it was no different, because it was this overcrowding which led to deadly riots. Though the prisoners are gone, they're not forgotten. And the ghosts of some of the 998 men who died here still roam free. There's a shadow man that has been seen and even photographed. Staff of the prison have been accosted by unseen forces. I have no idea what that word means. I'm guessing that means that the staff, they had been like overcome by some sort of unseen forces. Strange noises still echo throughout the cell blocks, and something dark lurks in the bowels of that building. We're going just as soon as we possibly can. We're gonna go fight us some demons. We're gonna have some real live prison fight. Old Joe versus a prison demon. Who you got? I'll be honest, I'm gonna go ahead and put my money on the demon. Just to be honest with you. Number 4 on our list of most scary and haunted prisons is Ohio State Reformatory in Mansfield, Ohio. And it was at this prison where they filmed the movie The Shawshank Redemption. The Ohio State Reformatory first opened in 1896 as a prison for criminals too old for juvenile facilities and not hardened enough for Ohio State Penitentiary in Columbus. Immediately, I already know what kind of a prison this is. This is a prison for the old heads. They've got prisons like this here in the state of Virginia. It's called Deerfield. That's where the old guys go who are not trying to be around the young bucks who are absolutely out of control and treating prison like a gladiator school, and definitely not tough enough to be at any other prisons either. A lot of states have prisons for these old guys with absolutely zero fight game. If you see an old head at a juvenile gladiator camp, you best bet it don't matter if that guy's 75 years old. If he's there, that guy probably fights better than Terminator. I'm letting you know. If you ever end up in a situation like that and you think you're gonna try to disrespect somebody old because they old, you might want to rethink that line of thinking. I'm just telling you. This Ohio State Reformatory had thousands of prisoners who were housed here during its years of operation, and while it was once applauded as a place that could humanely reform first-time offenders, the conditions deteriorated to the point that it became known for abuse, torture, and murder. Already considered overcrowded and inhumane by the 1930s, the massive prison was kept open until 1986. Since the closing of the reformatory, stories have circulated that it is haunted and tormented by spirits of former inmates, guards, and prison officials who have simply never left. People have reported that footsteps have been heard and unsettling encounters have taken place in the cells where inmates once lived, suffered, and sometimes died. One of the resident ghosts is reported to be Helen Gatke, the wife of Warden Arthur L. Gatke. She died in 1950 in an apartment in the administration wing of the prison when a loaded handgun fell from a closet shelf and went off. Her spirit has remained in the apartment ever since, often manifesting the smell of perfume. Some of the haunting stories that took place at this Ohio State reformatory include the story of the warden's wife that we just talked about, the chapel, which is said to be the scene of many paranormal events. Many believe it is a nucleus for much of the prison's haunting and ghost tales. Supposedly, before the area even became the chapel, it was used for executions. That's a hell of a renovation right there. You know, we're gonna go ahead and turn this area over here that's got this old Sparky and where we like to hang prisoners because there's nothing else to do on a Friday night and we ain't got TV or Netflix. And we can go ahead and tear all this down, turn this into the church. I don't see a better location inside this prison to do so. Just to be honest. People have said that they have captured many orbs in photographs and that they have recorded strange, unidentifiable sounds inside the chapel. The infirmary. Many prisoners died miserable deaths in the infirmary. It has been said that the sick and dying inmates were left without care, and many starved to death because they were too weak to fight off the thieves that stole their food. That's up. I just gotta be honest, I'm not even gonna make no jokes about that. That's bad. This area is known in paranormal circles to set off EMF detectors. That's what we need. We need us an EMF detector. Let's go find one at Spencer's. I'm sure they got them. And many have claimed to capture clusters of orbs in photographs. An unexplained gust of air passing by has also been reported by visitors in this area. Ooh, somebody just did a drive-by. Hey, who did that? Who did that? You need to write a slip to medical right now. Your insides are rotten. You got to go driving by like that gust of air. The final prison to make this list is Missouri State Penitentiary, also known as the bloodiest 47 acres. The Missouri State Penitentiary, known as the Walls, was constructed in the 1830s to serve the newly admitted state of Missouri. The earliest prisoners made the bricks that the first walls were built from. You know, that's something that I'm not sure we've ever really talked about here on After Prison Show, but a lot of prisons are not only built, but also torn down using prison labor. And why not? You can get it for damn near nothing and work these guys harder than mules. The initial prison population consisted of 1 guard, 1 warden, 15 prisoners, and a foreman for the brick making operation with an assistant. Not a lot of guys were here at first. 11 of the first 15 prisoners were from St. Louis and were incarcerated for larceny, except for 1, who was in prison for stabbing a man during a drunken brawl. And needless to say, this prison grew many times over the years until it was closed down in 2004. During its operations, it saw many infamous prisoners, including Charles Pretty Boy Floyd and James Earl Ray. In 1954, there was a major riot at this Missouri State Penitentiary. The Missouri State Highway Patrol, Missouri National Guard, and police departments from Jefferson City, St. Louis, and Kansas City, Missouri were called to help with this disturbance. When it was all over, 4 inmates had been killed, 29 had been injured, and there had been 1 attempted. I mean, just think about that. Here you are in the midst of a riot, you can't even take it anymore, and you're trying to take your own damn life. Things are so out of control that it drives you to the point where you don't even feel like you should be living anymore. 4 guards had been seriously injured during this riot, and several buildings had been burned. During the years of this prison's operation, 40 inmates were executed in the gas chamber, and Time magazine once called this prison the bloodiest 47 acres in America for the frequent violence inside of its walls. Harsh punishment at this prison included what was referred to then and is still referred to now as the hole. But their hole here at this Missouri State Prison was nothing like any type of hole I've ever had to experience myself. The hole was a medieval torture-style dungeon where the worst and most disliked prisoners were dumped and forgotten about. So it sounds like you didn't even have to do anything wrong at this prison to end up in the hole. Oftentimes, they were cramped into packed cells, 15 people tight, only to lose their minds in the darkness and eventually die. Man, when they talk about forgetting people in the holes here, I mean, they ain't bullshit. To say that it is bleak is an absolute understatement. These cells are teeming with the memories of madness, illness, and fear. And I mean, think about this. If you were in this hole and forgotten to the point where people are dying, can you imagine that prisoners were potentially eating other prisoners? A haunting story from this prison includes the incident in cell number 48. The story goes that there was this person on a tour at this facility who was in a place known as A Hall, and they were taking pictures in there. And while taking these pictures, I guess nothing really seemed out of the ordinary until these photos were developed. And when they were developed, a distorted human figure was standing next to whoever was on this tour's friend. Cody, we gotta go to the store. I'm gonna need me 2 night lights. This area of the cell was the site of a grisly murder which took place during one of the prison's many riots. This particular cell had once held an inmate who was notorious for snitching. A bad rap had gotten him bludgeoned to death with the very sledgehammer used to smash open the wall to his cell. Got this guy in prison who's snitching, hated probably by every single prisoner at this facility, and they want to get at this guy so bad that they use a sledgehammer to break through his cell wall and use that same sledgehammer to kill him. To this day, cell 48 remains as one of the strangest, most active places in all of Missouri State Penitentiary. You know, with every one of these prisons that we've mentioned, these scary and most haunted facilities, I want to take After Prison Show and go visit all of these. And not only do that, but also get that EMF reader and a pair of boxing gloves and try to fight us some demons. I am dead serious. Probably should have worded that a little better. But it really would be awesome to take After Prison Show, take all of you with us as we go tour and explore these scary and haunted facilities. Just see what we see. And who knows what we would see while doing so. Hey, look, that's it. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did so, please leave a like and a comment letting me know how many night lights you're gonna be sleeping with tonight. As always, until next time, enjoy life, the free world. Never take a moment for granted, and make the most of every day. Peace!